Hey famous warrior, welcome back to our channel. Today we are back to talking about pivot power, and I have a very interesting couple here that I want to share with you guys. I've known them for a while, they've been personal friends for a while, and it's my joy and honor to introduce them to you in hopes that you learn one or two things from their story. I know for a fact this isn't the last time, the first or last time they'll be here. So here today we have Sammie Ndhlovu and Edna Ndhlovu. Welcome, you guys.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for making the time to come and share this particular story. Like I said, I'm sure you'll come back for other things, other stories. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about pivot power and just this amazing journey that you guys have been on. I'm excited to hear some of the details that I maybe don't know and for it to serve as an encouragement to the people watching. So thanks again for making the time. Awesome.
Yeah.
So in true famous warrior fashion, just to break the ice, get the people who are watching, comfortable, let them feel like they know you. Tell us about yourself in 5 sentences, only 5 sentences. So pick your coolest fun facts about yourself, and we can start with Sammie.
Is it sentences or is it words?
Sentences.
Okay, sentences. Words will be easy
No,
though.
it's sentences.
I love words. Can I use words for this one?
Yes, you can, but then we need context. How do those words apply to you?
Wow. That's a tough one, Wiz, but let's give it a try. So, Sammie, he's resilient. Wiz, if we go on a treadmill, or we go and say we'll be waking up at this particular time, you give up and I won't give up.
Tried and tested. Huh?
I'm telling you. So there's a lot of resilience in me by the grace of God. I am also by the grace of God very, very focused. You can't easily turn and swerve me to the left or the right. If I want to stay on the narrow path, that's it. So how many words have I used? Let's use 2. Okay, and what else would I say? I am very dedicated in terms of when you give me something to work on, my commitment to be 100+% given to that. I love royalty. Yeah, so if I'm royal to you, I'll die for you. Yeah, so that's one trait that I have. Even if you are a wrong person, in terms of the Saul and David story, where I would make sure I'll protect your name. Yeah, so there is that. And the last one will be very loving.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, now Edna, it's your turn.
Well, to describe myself in 5 sentences, I would say the first thing is that I'm very committed. I'm a committed person. I remember joining the worship team at Miracle Life, and Caesar was the director, and he said, "Oh, you know what? If you miss, there's a spot that you stand on and there'll be nobody there." And so that caused me to think about why I was joining the choir, and I felt like that commitment to be there all the time was necessary, and I think it grew me to actually commit totally into things. So I do commit myself. When I say that I commit to something, I commit completely.
Awesome.
And I value friendships, though I don't have many, but I do value friendships. I value friendships because I believe that friends, bring a particular vibe to life. And I think that we can't do life by ourselves, but we need others. And also I value family. I think family is very important in whatever we do. And so I think that we need to dedicate our time and our energies into growing our families and into ensuring that our families are healthy.
Yeah.
And what else? I also value just, being diligent, being diligent in whatever that God has entrusted you with. We're stewards, and so we have to be diligent. So I think that those are the things that would describe who I am.
Awesome. Okay. So as we dive deep into this pool of pivot power as it pertains to you guys, set the scene for us, like lay the foundation for those who are watching. Before this transition that we're going to unpack today happened, what were you doing? Like, what was your day-to-day? What did a week in the life of Edna and Sammie look like before God just changed everything? Yeah, so paint the picture for people, like, so that they can understand when you're saying this was a big pivot. What exactly were you going from and to?
Yeah, so Louise happened in 2017, but that's fast forward. But our day-to-day was really business. We were doing distribution at the time with Zamtel, and so both of us were doing the same business, and so we'd share the office and drop the kids, go to the office, that type of thing every day, pick the kids, come back to the office. So that was everyday life for us, and then channel some resources towards real estate. So that was our business and time.
Awesome. So as we now get into the pivot, so we're talking about you guys transitioning from business to now full-time ministry in the church setup, right? How did that happen? Like, describe how it happened. How did it unfold? What were your feelings at the time? What were your apprehensions, if any? What happened, and how did you feel about what was happening at the time?
Wow. I guess we went to Rema, wanting to grow ourselves into just what God wants us to become. And from there, there was a nudge, I guess, in my heart and in his heart, but you can't share it because you're just thinking,
what the heck is this?
Like, the Lord doesn't speak like this because he knows we're business people. So I guess there was a lot of denial. And and I think when you're in Rema, people ask you, are you going to be a pastor or something? And obviously you would say no. Come on, really.
I'm a business person.
Yeah, I'm a business person. But I guess God started speaking to us privately. He was speaking to me and he was speaking to him as well. And I think that when he was asked to work for the church, his heart was already ready, I guess. And we just said, you know what, let's just step in there and see where God is taking us. It wasn't really clear. It wasn't anything that we thought would become what it is today. But it was just, okay, maybe 2-3 years you can work for the church. And then
get back to life as usual.
If I not 2 years, I gave myself 1 year.
Wow.
Louise, I gave myself 1 year. I said, I felt like, let me give back to the church. And especially learning at Rema, I just felt like, oh, you know what? Let's do ministry and help out the church. Then I can go back to my
life as usual.
I go back to my what I know.
Yeah.
And the 1 year turned to 2. But Edna said something that she said, I was ready. I wasn't really ready.
God was trying to prepare your heart, but then there was resistance.
Exactly. There was fear, there was uncertainty. What does this look like? Again, remember talking to one brother, and I told him, no, this is not for me. I can't really do church stuff. So
what was the biggest fear?
Well, first of all, was losing control. You know, you're your own boss. And suddenly you have to answer to someone.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. That is a big one.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah, because now I have to report at a certain time, and I have to obey the policy, the rules, everything. And I haven't done that for basically all my life. Maybe I only worked for 3 or 4 years, and after that I was on my own. Yeah, and now I have to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a big transition, and it was a very difficult one.
Wow. Before we move on, I want to hit back on something that you said, Edna. So you spoke about how you're a couple, right? You do business together, you do life together, you do, to some degree, your walk with the Lord together, but you're still individuals.
Yes.
And you have your private relationship with the Lord, and he has his private relationship with the Lord. Talk about what that looks like. How do you, even in this situation, or maybe different other situations during the course of your marriage where God might be speaking to you about something and your partner is resistant, or how do you navigate that space? How do you come back together and say, hey, this is what I feel the Lord is saying? How have you navigated that?
Well, that's a very good question, because initially when we started out, when God would speak to me or to him, I think what we would do was never really tell each other, because whatever God would say was a bit scary, and you'd think, is he telling my friend this thing? Or sometimes he would tell me earlier than he would him, and then I would say to him, and then he would be like, dismiss it. And then I would ask God, what should I do? What's the wisdom in how we should approach each other? Because like you said, we already have, I have a relationship with God, and he has a relationship with God. But as a couple, we also have that relationship. So it was about growing in learning how to say the things that God has said to your partner when God says it's time to say it.
Not just blurt it out immediately,
not just
you
saying
hear
it anyhow. And God prepares your partner as well to hear from him, and the moment you say something to him, he'll actually say, I was actually thinking about that too. And so it's easier when you wait on God to actually confirm with your partner. Give it time, and when God is ready to speak it to the two of you at the same time, it just happens naturally. You actually are not even in prayer. You're just sitting having coffee.
It just comes up.
And then it just comes up. And then he would say, I was thinking about this. And I was like, I was actually waiting that the Lord speaks to you too about that. So I think it's about individuals having a relationship with God and hearing from him, and then waiting on the right time to speak those things that he has spoken.
What would you say to a couple where the wife may have her own relationship with the Lord, but in such situations she doesn't feel like she has the voice to be able to tell her husband, hey, this is something I feel the Lord is saying? Maybe because her husband is very dismissive, but almost to a fault, or she feels because he's the head of the house, God must only talk to him. There are all these strange beliefs that people have, and strange perceptions they have about their role, their spiritual role in their marriage. What would you say to a woman like that from your experience?
Wow. Women, many times we do not know our position, and we feel like we're less than when God has created us to be equal, but he has given us hierarchy in marriage, and the hierarchy doesn't dismiss the equalness. So we have to first understand who we are in him and what he has said to us about who we are, and so then we can derive confidence from there.
That's a key word, right?
Right. Derive confidence from there, because we know who we are and we know what God has put inside of us, and then we speak from that position. And so I think it's key for women to get to know who they are and to understand their purpose. And again, to differentiate what culture says you are as a woman and what God has said that you are as a woman. Because I believe what God has said empowers a woman, and it doesn't take away from her.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. So back to the pivoting situation, right? So being in business, majority of your working life, if not all of it, when you made the transition into ministry, did you find that some of the things you had learned in your business experience were easy shift overs, or like applicable to ministry, or did you feel like you're in this unknown territory and you just have to like start from scratch?
Of course, ministry is very different to business, but certain principles that would work in business would work also in ministry. For example, you have to look at your work. I was doing first impressions, basically hospitality. So you look at how can we create an environment, a wow environment for our guests.
Yeah.
I'm looking at myself as a host, and these are my guests coming in. So that they do in hospitality industry, and so you think about things like that. So it so there were things like that you had to bring into ministry, and I do remember even when you're talking about developing teams, helping life team members, volunteers in that regard. So how also you use certain principles in terms of how you recruit. You create an environment, conducive environment for you to do that, so that people buy into you first, and then buy into the vision. That's right. Yeah, because normally people buy into the leader, and then later on buy into the vision.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay. So once you were in it, you mentioned your heart was not so ready, partially ready, whatever, right? You're in it. Let's say it's the first 3 months. Okay, you're doing the whole reporting thing, coming at this time, trying to navigate, the school runs now because it has to fit within this framework, right? What are some challenges you experienced personally for each of you? Because he was there and you're kind of a support, so you're like an extension of him, but you weren't necessarily reporting at the church, right? So what are some challenges that you experienced individually during those first 3 months, during the adjustment period? And what are some challenges you experienced as a couple that maybe affected your home or your family?
That's a deep one. Let's
go deeper.
Okay, let's go deeper.
I think the one thing that changed was the time that we're spending together. Because in the morning, we'll drop the kids, he'll come back home, and then we'll plan the day together. Like, we'll just be together the whole day.
We'll be in the office, not home.
We'll be in the office, of course. And him not being there was so weird. Like, I had to figure things out by myself, and I was just like,
he's not here for me to say, what do you think about this?
Like, how is my day going to... So my days were really hard in the beginning, and I felt like at any moment if he says like I'm giving up, I was just like, you're welcome to come back.
Just come back.
Just come back. We're waiting for you. Yeah. But those were the biggest challenges for me. Just that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Sammie?
Of course, number one is control.
Yes.
Lost control. My time was in somebody else's time. I had to the supervisor issue was very difficult. You're looking at maybe 3 tiers, before you could go to the CEO, so to speak. Yeah. And you have to, especially when you're bringing in creativity, because in business all the time you have to be creative.
And then you don't have to ask anybody. Is this a good idea?
Yeah, no.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So that was difficult. I'm seeing these things are not done right, and says, we can do something about this. Then the policy says you cannot just wake up and just change that. And you have to ask somebody, and then somebody says, no, it's been done this way for a long time. Convince them. Yeah, so that was very, very difficult and a bit frustrating at times. But at the same time, and that was very something that I had to learn, Louise, because that frustrated me for a long time, to a point where I felt like, do they need me? If they are refusing my ideas, then do they need me? Yeah. But now you learn submission and authority later on. Yeah.
So when we talk about what you are just sharing, submission, authority, all these things, what do you think the Lord was trying to teach you during that season? Because God is very intentional. Everything, He's thought about every single thing. And you can think, this is just a byproduct of this big thing, but like everything, He knows. So when you look back on that period, do you have a sense of, okay, I can see what God was trying to work through in me, whether it pertains to how I husband, how I father, how I even look at business, how I look at ministry? Is there like 1 or 2 lessons that you're like, okay, that was what God wanted me to learn during that period?
A lot. Not one, but a lot. Number one would be self-sufficient. like, you know, I like you build business and you think like I am the master.
Right.
And so I got this. And in a way, there's a sense that you don't really need God. And so in that period, you begin to say like, oh man, I have this. I'm not really, there's pride in me. There's a pride issue. And so God begins to empty you. So number one was emptying. And the scripture that really speaks so loud, even up to now, is Philippians, 2, where Jesus, the Bible says, he emptied himself. He left his privileged position, and that's who he was. But when he came here, he was just a mere guy.
Yeah.
And so it was those moments where you felt like I was too full of myself. This is me, I've made it and whatnot. And then God begins to first humble you. Of course, God doesn't humble you, you humble yourself.
Yes.
So I had to go through that period of emptying. And a lot of times I'm still emptying. There are moments where the me comes out and they says, oh yeah, there I see it again. There was a lot of that. And sometimes we think we are the source. And forget that God is the source. And because even when I was going there, I said, the income, is it going to be enough to sustain my home, to pay school fees, and then later on we say, no, but God is a source. So there were moments like that. So there's a lot of moments.
So as a man, your role is to provide.
That's right.
And you think that you are the provider, and you have to hold back and say, okay, I might be a provider, but there is the provider, and he's coming through me. Awesome.
The first 3 months getting into ministry and realizing that things have changed and what am I learning from all of this? I think the first thing was getting to know myself, getting to know who I am. I think as a mother, you always lose yourself. And in losing yourself, you forget your purpose. You forget who you are. And I think that gave me a lot of time to sit down and think about, why am I here? And that really was a time that then I started to introspect and to find the answers for why am I here. I didn't really want to just live life, give birth to children and then die.
Wifing, momming. Yes, it's a big part of who you are, but it's not the main thing.
It's not the
right?
only thing. Yes, so then I started to search for what that was, and it's been a long search. It didn't just come in the 3 months, but in the 3 months I realized that I needed to find what that was.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Okay, so I'm just processing all of this. Like, wow, guys, these are deep things that are coming up. Awesome. I'm glad to have this conversation because I'm learning a lot as well. When we look at couples that seem to be, stable, one of the biggest things they would tell you if you ask them, how have you stayed together this long? How do you make things work? They'll say communication, right? And along with communication, from what you have shared so far, I can tell that you are the type of couple that also likes to collaborate. You did business together, you ran your home together, you were this collaborative team, right? So when it comes to all the things that were changing and shifting and happening as this transition started, what are some key things you had to keep in front of you to keep communication flowing, to keep that collaborative spirit going? Because now you're at the office by yourself, he's gone. What were some purposeful things that you were like, no, we are not going to lose this about us? Yes, the season has changed, but this is what we're going to do to keep this thing about us and about who we are as a couple.
Wow. The first thing is, I like this word, intentionality.
I was about to say that.
I think it's about being intentional in creating an environment that you want for the marriage, for the home. What do you want? And I think that's where vision comes in. that's where you as a couple need to sit down and deliberately create things that you need to do in order for your marriage to grow, to thrive, and for your children also to be part of whatever is going on in your home. That intentionality is something that even when we're going through the worst times of our marriage, we engaged our children, and they were part of the journey that we were, going through. And it changes the whole aspect of how you deal with things in the home. So being intentional about, are we supposed to be growing in communication? And we did that. We realized our communication wasn't that good, and we said, okay, let's have every Wednesday, when on his off day, that time he was working twice a week, I think 3 times a week.
Twice a week.
And on his off day, one of the off days,
including Sunday.
we decided to set a day where me and him would sit and reflect on the week. How did I experience him, and how did he experience me? And how are we communicating? Are we growing? What has he been saying, or what hasn't he been communicating? And so that grew us into getting to know who he is and who I am, and how I need to be communicated to, and how he needs to be communicated to, and whatnot. So really, it's intentionality at the end of the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other thoughts?
Edna loves intentionality.
I love it too.
I love living life by design.
Right.
So life must be lived by the design that you want it to look like.
So not on accident.
No. We don't live life by default. No. So there was a lot of, like she said, the Wednesday, the board, we used to call it a board meeting. It's a time where you don't defend yourself in terms of what the other person experienced you. And they say, no, you didn't do A, B, C, D. It's not time for you to say, no, but because of A, B, C, D.
Because that was their experience.
Yeah,
right?
so you just say, oh, okay, so how do you want me to do it next time? So you hear them, and then you go and implement those things, and come the following week and do a review. And say, how did it go? I know there's an improvement, but if you can just notch it a little bit, tweak it, that will help.
20%.
Hey, 20%. I would love that. So that really helped a lot. And also we devotion time every night, and 19 somewhere there would sit with the kids and just say, how's your day, what's going on in your life, and things like that really kind of just bonded us and helped us to see where we need to focus on things and whatnot.
Awesome. Since because you started off working part-time, and then now it's a whole full swing, and you've even been ordained. Now you're Pastor Sammie, and now you're my booster. This is like this whole shift. So it looks like it was happening gradually, God was working with you gradually, and then now you're like in this space. During the course of that gradual shifting, share with us a time, an incident, and each of you can answer this question, where something happened to really reinforce, like God used that situation to really confirm that you are doing the right thing. Because I can imagine during the course of this transition, there were times when, like you said, if he says he's done with this, baby, come on back. Let's just get back to the way things are, And you have doubts, and the enemy tries to come and, bring all these things, and you have question marks, or you have a disagreement with your supervisor, and you're like, I don't think this is the right move. So definitely there are those doubts that will be there, right? But what is one situation that even up to today you recognize as, okay, that God really used to just confirm to me that you're on the right track and I'm with you?
Wow. I was telling somebody, I don't know, there's this, we use it at church, we use it everywhere. We call it sanctification. You've been sanctified, separated, set apart. And I think that word began to ring in a very different tone in my heart in terms of how sanctification looks like. And so we were at a funeral with friend, a colleague, Pastor Benjamin, and we were officiating. I wasn't a pastor at that time. I was just helping out. And so we were there, and then we just dove into this subject and said, so what do you see yourself becoming in the next 2-3 years? And I said, I just feel this spirit leading me towards ministry. I don't know, but I don't think it's Miracle Life, you know. Yeah, there's this pull, you know, and I can't put my hand to it. And it wasn't even anywhere close. But I just said, there's this in me, but I feel I'm ready towards it. So yeah, that's what, you know. And then it was at a funeral, and what a place to talk about things like that, right? and under the graveyard, actually, not in church. So yeah, so there was that. Then I think I told Edna about it. I was like, I feel this way.
Yeah.
What do you feel? He says, I think that's exactly. I knew that this is coming, and I thought you're not going to be ready to take it up. And so yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you were saying that we were supposed to go for missions, actually. And that was my hesitation. I was like, moving to where? And it was like, wherever the Lord leads.
Oh dear.
But I don't feel like it's, you know, the church that we're at right now. I feel like it's out there in the world. I was like, okay. Wow, the Lord is faithful. We shall trust him. But I was very hesitant knowing that it's out there somewhere in the world.
Where I don't know.
Yeah.
In fact, Louise, it started when we were on a trip one time, way back before we even got into Rema.
Yeah.
We were in China, and so one guy had a radio or cassette, whatever it is, he's playing in the street. And you know, China, so he's playing, I think it was a Zambian thing or whatever, but it was gospel.
Some gospel music.
So we said, these people can't even understand what this guy is doing. But he was loud and he's walking. Then we felt like we can do ministry here, you know. And so maybe that was already God, putting, things happening. And we came back and says, maybe we're going back to China.
To be missionary.
Wow.
So when we were doing Rema, the thought was towards
China.
That's why.
Especially China. Yeah.
You never know. Maybe
one day.
Maybe we'll go back to China.
Maybe. We never know.
God has this weird way of doing full circle.
Preparation for
something.
Yeah.
For sure.
Never know. Yeah.
You just put it on a shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's still there in the heart. Like, like one day you go somewhere, but you're just like, okay, we're not there yet. We're taking baby steps.
Yeah. What about you, Edna? Any landmark or key incidences to make you really feel grounded in the decision that you were making as a family?
I think that the decision took me back to when I was young. I remembered the fact that I was always, if somebody's looking for me, my dad or my parents would always say, she's either at school or at church. And I just loved being around Christians and doing the work of ministry. And it took me back there, and I started to think about, I think this is where I belong somehow. You know, there's that quiet thought inside of you, like, I think this is where I belong. Because I feel a lot of peace, and I feel like I'm expressing myself there, and I just feel the joy. I just want to be there. It's not like I'm forced to be there. And even when I think about other things that I need to be doing, my mind always goes back to growing girls, doing this and that, things about ministry. And I was like, oh, what an opportunity. Then I can do those things that I've always thought about. So it was me going back to where I was before, and then thinking, oh, maybe this is the right time. And so it didn't scare me. Well, maybe it did. But it affirmed the fact that I need to be doing something. I need to be that arm or that part that is joint that needs to be supplying something.
Awesome. Wow. You guys are very intentional, back to intentionality, about how you parent. And being people that walk with your children and not just like drag them along with you, right? What are some things that you purposefully did with your kids, maybe conversations you had with them as you were making this transition? What kind of language did you use to prepare them for this change, you know, especially even when it came on the table that, oh, there's an ordination coming, you know, like, how did you navigate that with your kids?
Wow. It was so easy.
It was easy though.
Is it?
Yeah.
So easy.
Wow.
Because we are not different to them and what we portray out there. It's the same thing. So when we actually told them, when we were having our night meetings, we told them, oh, there's actually ordination coming up. And then our son was like, oh, we saw it coming.
Wow.
And we're like, how? Why? It's like he's always loved to teach people.
Wow.
Because he would, from previously, get people, young adults, and bring them to
Coach
our
them.
home and teach them about some things that he has learned and all of that. And our daughter said to him that, you know, you need to know that this is God calling you into ministry and not man.
Yeah.
And so you
How old is
need-
this daughter?
At that time, she was 15.
Wow.
The time she
No,
she was 16. She was
16.
16. Yeah. Yeah.
Your 16-year-old daughter told you that.
And she said you need to focus on God and not man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it's because even before all of this, like we said, intentionally we created an environment that we wanted in our home. And the environment that we wanted was centered on God. And so the centering on God did not just start when he joins the church. The centering on God started way back.
Yeah.
Talking to them about who God is and our values.
Yeah.
They know that we value God, we value prayer, we value all of these things, and we talk about these things all the time. And even when that came, we actually said we're not changing who we are.
Yeah.
We'll continue.
Just a different assignment.
It's just a different assignment. We
Yeah.
continue with what we've been doing, and because it's not different from, you know, what we were to what we are now.
Yeah.
We've just continued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Reminds me of one day, our son is 15 now. Is it this year? So he was at Impact, young,
The teens.
the teens, the youths,
Yeah.
as we call them. So he's there, and then he was asked to introduce himself. And then he introduced and says, I'm Sean, Pastor Sammie's son. So his friends, I think they shared with you, I think the mother or something. No, Sean introduced himself as Pastor Sammie's son. So I came home, I said, why did you introduce us? Just say, why didn't you just say I'm Sean? You had to put my name there. Says, for the first time, I wanted just to be proud and say who you are to me. That was just like, wow, man. I need to up my game.
That's a wow man
Yeah.
Wow.
It just humbled you, you know? Yeah, like, oh man, I can't play games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he sees that as something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Something not to hide. Something to attach to his identity.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so the switch. You know, in the beginning I said paint the picture for people so that they can understand how drastic of a shift, you know, it was. Business, running your own business, being your own boss, to now ministry, full-time ministry, pastor, submitted under the senior pastor, submitted under the vision of this organization that you've attached yourselves to. That shift could not have been done without certain resources. So what resources have you utilized? Whether it's books, mentors, YouTube videos, like what? Yeah, what resources, relationships, you know, friendships maybe that you go to talk about, to process some of these changes. But what resources have been a great aid in you making this transition smoother?
Okay. So there is a program that I'm still doing right now. It's called Map for Life, and I still do teach. I'm an accredited coach for that, and so that is one resource, because has a lot of questions. Actually, somebody says the quality of the questions you're willing to ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. So a lot of those questions would have helped me to really navigate some of these ways to do ministry and to do also life as a husband and also as a father. So I know what time to put into ministry and what time to put into my marriage and also with the kids, and also to have fun and play out.
Yeah, because you're still you.
Yes, I'm still. So all those areas, I don't have to be very spiritual and yet very poor in terms of how I manage resources like money.
Yeah.
So God wants me to use wisdom also in that side. So that resource has been very, very helpful. We also had a couple that we used to go to, I think it was every Wednesday or Tuesday, I can't remember, for marriage, just to enhance it. There was not that there was anything wrong, but these guys just did marriage at a different level. And we felt like, man, we can learn a lot of stuff. So we used to go out there and talk and just learn how to do it. And even when we were kids, we were getting into teenager, we didn't even know how to parent a teenager. There's no manual, that comes and says this is how you parent them. And so we began to learn from them. How did you parent your teenager girls? And so there was a lot of lessons from there. Also from the lessons from our senior pastors, really has been a lot of resource in that regard. So all that has helped me and helped Edna in terms of how to do life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other resources, Edna, that pertain to you specifically?
I think that because in the beginning we said we collaborate a lot, so most of the resources would share. And I think that it was important that we had the same place where we're getting information from.
So that you're matching.
Yes. And so most of it was really together. If there was anything that I did by myself, was maybe just enhancing on what has already been laid as a foundation, and just me taking that road of saying, how can I understand this information? How can I grasp this information so that it becomes real for me? Yeah, that was the only side that I would go by myself. Awesome. But it was all together.
Okay. All right. So we've come to the end of our conversation, but there are people on the other side of the screen that have been listening, and hopefully taking some notes. As God has, just unpacked a lot of the things that you said. What final word of encouragement, and you can each just speak to the person watching, would you have to say to someone who is at that crucial pivot moment? And it might be, yes, from the corporate to ministry, or it might be a different kind of pivot in their life, but some of these principles and things that you've shared can still apply to them. What word of encouragement would you have to say to someone like that? They're kind of on the fence, and it's a very pivotal moment that God is trying to shift them into their destiny, and maybe they're dealing with some of the things you've shared, fear and all those things. Yeah.
I'll go. I think to that person, I would say that be quick to obey. The reason I say that is because Sammie says it all the time. And the reason he says it all the time is in the moment when God is speaking to you and you do not make a quick decision in the moment, other voices will start speaking to you. And then you start, analyzing. But don't give yourself that chance when you know that this is God who has said that you need to take this move or you need to make this decision. So be quick to obey when you are confident that this is what God is saying to you. Yeah, that's what I would say to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just build it up from there. The quick to obey. There's also a saying out there, they say the best time to act is when the idea is hot and the emotions are strong. So when you have the idea and you've bought into the idea, don't wait for it to cool. Because once it gets cold, then you're cold as well. And then you won't act. So when you know that this is what I'm called to do, and and for sure you know it, act on it. And once you act on it, you find like, oh man, I didn't know there was this. And as it were, God doesn't review the whole story.
Yeah.
It's, you take this step, then, oh, another step, oh, okay, oh, there's more. No, I didn't know. I mean, like we talked about it. I didn't know that. I was just doing first impressions and part-time.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is, oh, can you lead the young adults? Then until we find ourselves as a position of service, and not necessarily a title, but really to serve, and find ourselves as pastors, associate pastors of Miracle Life Family Church. So what a joy it is to serve and just act and take a step of faith, and you'll be shocked what your life will look like.
Thanks again for making the time, you guys, and for being vulnerable. Here in the Famous Warrior community, we always say vulnerability is a secret weapon, a weapon that we use to combat, the plans that the enemy may have, because he wants us to stay quiet. He doesn't want us to have conversations like this. He doesn't want me to learn from you. He doesn't want those watching to learn from you. So I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate all the things you've shared. And I know for sure someone out there has been encouraged. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having us. We're so grateful. Yeah, it was an awesome time.
Awesome. Okay, Famous Warriors, before I end the video, I want to encourage you to leave us a comment. We want to hear how this video has impacted you, things that you're going to implement, things that have stirred up in your heart, whatever it is that God is, shaking within you. Please share it with us in the comments below so that it can encourage someone else who might read those comments. Pivotal moments are moments that God uses to not only shake our lives. Sometimes it feels like he's turning things upside down and we are resistant to that. But he's using that because he has a purpose. He has a plan for you. He has a destiny for you. And if you can just flow with him, then you will see all those things unfold like Sammie and Edna have shared. Don't forget that the chance to fight is a privilege, and you guys are definitely worth the fight.